Now to the next speaker, Dr. Jonathan Boyd, Executive Director, Institute for Jewish Policy Research. And Dr. Boyd, thank you for joining us. And I just wanted to remind you that you have 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. High Representative Moratinos, distinguished panelists. If you take one thing away from my remarks today, it should be this, that anti-Semitism is elastic. And if we want to combat it, we need to think in elastic terms too. That's one key insight that's emerged from empirical work done by the Institute for Jewish Policy Research, the research organisation that I run, for clients including the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, the European Commission and the Community Security Trust in the UK. Now, what do I mean when I say anti-Semitism is elastic? One of the most common research methods used to measure anti-Semitism is to present respondents with a set of anti-Semitic statements and ask them if they agree with them or not. Jews get rich at the expense of others, agree or disagree. The Holocaust is a myth, agree or disagree. And then at analysis phase, respondents are commonly divided into two simple groups, anti-Semites and not anti-Semites. But anti-Semitism is actually much more complicated than that. And in our own work using this method, we presented respondents with 8 anti-Semitic statements to test attitudes among British people. Guess what proportion agreed with all 8 statements? About 0.1%, about 1 in 1,000. But now guess how many agreed with at least one of the 8 anti-Semitic statements? 30%, 1 in 3 people across Great Britain. So anti-Semitism is elastic. At its most taut, there are hardcore ideological anti-Semites, people who potentially pose a mortal threat to Jews. And at its most slack, there is casual anti-Semitism, a prejudice that exists at low levels across large swathes of society. In the UK, it's about 30% of it. Now, very different strategies are required to address these very different problems. To address the threats posed by hardcore anti-Semites, we need security, policing, swift judicial procedures, effective punitive measures. To address casual anti-Semitism, we need educational interventions, awareness-raising campaigns, methods to confront microaggressions in universities and the workplace. In brief, the solutions to an elastic problem have to be elastic themselves. How elastic? Well, the figures I've just shared come from the UK as a whole, but when we look within that population, for example, at those with far left political views or with far right views, or who are parts of different religious groups, the figures differ from one another. So the solutions need to differ in each case. And then when we look at other countries, the equivalent figures differ again. They vary from country to country. So the scales and the dimensions of these problems are different in different places. And then when we throw anti-Israel views into the mix, by again, I don't mean reasoned political opinion on Israeli government policy, but rather the types of hostility towards Israel that can very easily descend into verbal intimidation against Jews, physical violence, and worse, and that have been found empirically to correlate with anti-Semitic beliefs. We get different figures again, pointing again to different types of policy interventions. And of course, all of these figures are moving targets. They change over time, increasing or decreasing in response to various political, economic, social and technological developments. Now, given all of this complexity, there cannot be a single silver bullet to combat anti-Semitism. It's an elastic phenomenon that manifests itself differently to different extents in different places and different times. Indeed, as many have already said, it's often been likened to a virus that mutates and changes form and potency over time and across space. The virus metaphor is helpful, both in terms of understanding anti-Semitism and in thinking about how to tackle it, because we've learned a lot recently about how to tackle a virus. We've seen public information campaigns to raise awareness of the threat. We've seen preventative measures, hand washing, social distancing, things everyone needs to do to tackle the problem. We've seen punitive measures, fines and arrests for people breaking the rules. We've seen a lot of research, constant measuring of the scale of the problem and early warning signs when it's about to escalate. And we've seen massive investment in antidotes, a global multifaceted effort to create vaccines. So tackling the elastic virus of anti-Semitism that has many variants and mutates over time requires a similar approach. public education, preventative measures, punitive measures, statistical monitoring and analysis, investment in serious antidotes. In brief, a multiplicity of initiatives brought together under an overarching theory of combating anti-Semitism that recognises the complexity of the phenomenon it's trying to address. And the work, I think, requires three key internationally coordinated activities. Number one, continual monitoring of levels of anti-Semitism worldwide, not just using incident data, but using multiple complementary, academically robust research methods, including attitudinal and demographic research. Number two, multiple complementary initiatives designed to address different manifestations of anti-Semitism in different places. And number three, continual evaluation of the efficacy of each initiative to help improve it and to develop new ones. And it seems to me that multinational organizations like the United Nations, with its multinational mission and its connections to multiple countries around the world, can play a very important role here. Anti-Semitism is elastic, so it requires elastic solutions. This type of initiative today, run by this type of organization, is potentially a vital step forward towards developing that elastic strategy. So thank you, High Representative Moratinos, for convening us together today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boyd. First of all, I would like to thank you for sticking to the, or adhering to the 5-minute slot. And thank you for your input. And of course, anti-Semitism is elastic and there is no silver bullet to end anti-Semitism. It needs a multi-pronged, human-based, education-based approach, and to continue monitoring. We acknowledge the good work that your entity has done together with the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights. Indeed, research must continue, more focused research must continue in this area.